Tanzania recently had the general elections, and as we all know that the current president of Tanzania is Samia Suluhu Hassan, right? And in fact, he took office from the late Pombe Magufuli, who was the former president, after he died. So she was not elected at all. She basically inherited the seat from Magufuli after his demise, right? And recently, it was now her first general election, and she decided to vie. And a lot of people are saying that Samia Suluhu vied against Samia Hassan against Suluhu herself, right? And the reasons why people are saying that is because she had like 16 other candidates, but they were not that popular, you know. Uh, Initially, she's been silencing her critics, and in fact, she arrested the prominent opposition figures, which of course would have, been competitive or would have been in competition with her. So basically, it was the popular candidate, and he had all the advantages compared to the rest of the 16 candidates from smaller parties, right? And in fact, there is this tweet from someone called African Mogu from Twitter. You can see from here there is Samia Suluhu in green and then Samia Suluhu in red as the opposing opponent. Of course, this is soccer. And then Samia Suluhu in black is the referee. So basically, Samia Suluhu was overseeing her own election against herself, right? And in fact, there's this guy who is saying that very true. She's completely competing against herself, besides being a referee for the game, right? I mean, it was total victory for her. And in fact, this brought a lot of, demonstrations in Tanzania. And a lot of people, were rioting, were demonstrating against this result, saying, the election was not fair. And you know what? In fact, Tanzanians ended up saying that or claiming that those who were demonstrating, were not Tanzanians, they were Kenyans. I mean, they couldn't face the truth. I mean, Tanzania historically have been known to be this quiet country without much, of resistance compared to a country like Kenya, for example, because, Kenya as we're these people who always fight, for our rights. We demonstrate a lot, and in fact, we have that mature constitution, and the constitution gives us that right to demonstrate. But now Tanzanians, they've always lived in fear. In fact, for the first time, I think there was that uprising, that demonstration against what was going on in Tanzania. And in fact, from this post, Tanzania's security forces claim that those demonstrating against the elections are not Tanzanian citizens. This might be an indication that foreign residents in Tanzania are about to be sacrificial lambs in order for government to save face. Check on your relatives in Tanzania. Yeah, and in fact, there were some clips, circulating about this. Of course, I'm not going to put it here because of they're a bit sensitive, If you go to Telegram, I think you're going to find those clips of dead people, lying on streets. And in fact, I'm hearing some allegations that, the Tanzanian government are going from shop to shop or from building to building, trying to hide the evidence of, massacre that have happened on the streets of Tanzania during demonstrations, right? Which, to think about it, it's very unfortunate. It's very awful. Yeah. And in fact, here is a video of the president of Tanzania, echoing the same rhetoric, saying that those who are demonstrating are not actually Tanzanians. They come from other countries, And of course, we know very well that these they don't come from Somalia. After all, Somalia is not bordering Tanzania, right? It's not Ethiopia, it's not Sudan, right? It's not, I don't think it's Uganda either, right? I think they were just insinuating. I think the Tanzania president was insinuating that those who were demonstrating were Kenyans, which I find it hard to agree with that, right? Considering the initially, even before the elections, the main opposition figure, which was Tundu Lissu, was arrested, and charged for treason, right? And there were some Kenyans who went to Tanzania to sort of witness the trial of Tundu Lissu, but they didn't get to court because at the airport, Tanzanian authorities arrested them, right? And I think Martha Karua was one of them. And then there is this activist called Boniface Mwangi. And in fact, Boniface Mwangi was claiming that he was assaulted in Tanzania. In fact, he went missing for a few days before he was found in, having been left in somewhere around the coast, right? And to think about it, it's very horrible, right? So, in fact, here is a clip of the Tanzanian Samia Suluhu, talking about that.
Haikutushangaza kuona kuwa baadhi ya vijana waliokamatwa kutokana na kadhia hiyo wametoka nje ya Tanzania. Vyombo vyetu vya ulinzi na usalama vinaendelea kufuatilia na kuchunguza kwa undani zaidi kilichotokea na kuirudisha nchi katika hali tuliyoizoea kwa haraka.
Yeah. So you see, it's very unfortunate, right? So Samia Suluhu initially had already restrained activists from just going to witness the case against Tundu Lissu, right? And having witnessed what Boniface Mwangi was handled in Tanzania, I don't think any Kenyan activist would want to go to Tanzania right now. And so I find it very difficult to believe what Samia Suluhu was saying concerning Kenyan demonstrators or outsiders, in quotes, are the ones who are demonstrating in Tanzania. I mean, nobody wants to go to Tanzania, considering how her government treated Kenyans, right? And Kenyan activists. You don't want to risk to go to Tanzania right now, right? And it is crazy. And now here's a video of her.
Tumeanza kuona mtiririko au mwenendo wa wanaharakati ndani ya region yetu hii kuanza kuvamia na kuingilia mambo yetu huku. Sasa kama kwao wameshadhibitiwa, wasije kutuharibia huku. Tusitowe nafasi. Walishaharibu kwao, walishavuruga kwao. Nchi iliyobaki haijaharibika. Watu wako na usalama na amani na utulivu ni hapa kwetu. Kuna majaribio kadhaa. Niwaombe sana vyombo vya ulinzi na usalama na nyinyi wasimamizi wa sera zetu nje kutoa nafasi kwa watovu wa adabu wa nchi nyingine kuja kutovuka hapa kwetu. Hapana. Nimeona klipu kadhaa za kunisema niko bias na nini. Nalofanya ni kulinda nchi yangu na ndio wajibu niliopewa. Kwa hiyo hatutatoa nafasi kwa kiumbe yoyote kuja kutuvurugia hapa, awe yupo ndani au anatoka nje. Hatutatoa hiyo nafasi.
And you know what's crazy about this whole election thing is that according to the Constitution of Tanzania, you are not allowed to challenge, the result of the election after the electoral commission has declared a winner, and that winner has been, sworn in, right? I mean, that is crazy. In Kenya, you can actually go to court and challenge presidential election or presidential announcement or declaration of a win, and just being on this other side, not being a Tanzanian, thinking about it seems so crazy and so weird, right? I mean, it just tells you how dictatorial the constitution is, you know. In fact, look at this post here from RN Media Services. It says, according to Tanzanian law, presidential election results cannot be challenged in court. President-elect Samia Suluhu is now only awaiting her swearing-in ceremony. Article 41 of the Constitution of Tanzania, 1977, stipulates that once the Electoral Commission declares a winner, the decision is final and no court of law shall have any jurisdiction to inquire into the election of that candidate. I mean, can you believe that? That's crazy. So as long as you are the president and you have the control of the military, you have the control of the whole country, you can silence your critics, you can have control of the electoral commission. In fact, I think it's not going to surprise me if the president is the one who appoints, the chairman of the electoral commission, right, in Tanzania, which is crazy, right? So as long as you have that good favor from your friend in the electoral commission, and you can silence your critics, for sure, you can be president for as long as you want, right? And in fact, some people are claiming that the a lot of people didn't vote, did not turn up to vote, but somehow Suluhu managed to get 31 million votes, if not more than that, right? Which is about 97% of the total vote. And what is even more weird is if it is true that Samia Suluhu actually got that 97% of the votes, then is why is it that she was sworn in a military base, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense because this math is not mathing, okay? I mean, if you are able to get 97% of the total votes, that means that you're so loved in your country. Then why can't you allow citizens to attend your swearing in ceremony? Like in Kenya during swearing in ceremony of the previous government, I think it occurs in Kasarani Stadium, right? And you find that thousands and thousands of citizens, I think more than 60,000 citizens are invited to just witness. But for the case of Samia Suluhu, that was not the case. You know, it was a private ceremony inside a military base, and that tells you that somehow the president was a bit scared, of demonstrators showing up at the venue, right? And it just proves you know, that this election was actually rigged in some way, right? Somehow, people at least tried to oppose for the first time, right? And I think it's just an awakening, by these Tanzanian citizens. Then they now start to fight for their rights and hoping that probably in future they're going to, do more and more and probably succeed, right? What do you think? Do you think that election was fair? Leave your thoughts in the comment section, and of course leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one.